In the words of Martin Luther King himself, the time is always right to do what is right. And so, our story begins with the birth of this remarkable man in the heart of Atlanta, Georgia, on the 15th day of January, in the year of 1929. Born into a lineage of pastors, young Martin was nurtured in an environment steeped in faith and service. It was in these early years within the comforting walls of his family home that the seeds of his commitment to public service and civil rights were planted and nourished. His parents, Martin Luther King Sr. and Alberta Williams King, instilled in him not just the values of honesty and diligence, but also the courage to stand up for justice. These lessons, which he carried with him throughout his life, were his guiding light, leading him down the path of righteousness. As Martin grew, so did his thirst for knowledge. After a childhood filled with curiosity and learning, he took his leap into higher education. He graduated from Morehouse College at the tender age of 19, a testament to his intellectual prowess. But his pursuit of knowledge didn't stop there. He went on to attend Crozer Theological Seminary in Pennsylvania, further honing his understanding of theology and his commitment to service. Yet, even with these accomplishments, he yearned for more. His quest for wisdom took him to Boston University, where he pursued a doctorate in systematic theology. It was here, in the hallowed halls of this esteemed institution, that Martin's understanding of social justice and equality deepened, shaping him into the leader he was destined to become. In those early years, no one could have predicted the monumental impact this young man from Atlanta would have. Little did the world know this young man from Atlanta would spearhead a movement that would change the course of history. A man on a mission, Martin Luther King stepped into the heart of the civil rights movement. With a spark of hope in his eyes and a dream in his heart, he was ready to challenge the status quo. A status quo that had for centuries fed racial segregation and stratification. But Martin, he was a man of faith, a man of courage, and above all, a man of action. In the mid-50s, when Rosa Parks was arrested for refusing to give up her seat on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama, King saw an opportunity. He saw a chance to challenge the injustices of racial segregation in public transportation. Thus began the Montgomery bus boycott, a pivotal moment in the civil rights movement. Under King's leadership, the African American community in Montgomery boycotted the city buses, a non-violent demonstration that lasted for over a year. Their resilience bore fruit when in late 1956, the Supreme Court declared segregation on public buses unconstitutional. King's role in the boycott catapulted him to national prominence, marking the beginning of his role as a key figure in the civil rights movement. He went on to serve as the president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, leading the charge against racial injustices. His commitment to non-violent civil disobedience, inspired by Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy, became a hallmark of his leadership. Throughout the late 50s and early 60s, King led numerous protests and civil rights actions. From sit-ins to freedom rides, from marches to speeches, King was at the forefront, inspiring millions with his vision of a society where all men and women, regardless of their race or color, could live in harmony and equality. He faced numerous challenges, threats, and even arrests, but he remained steadfast, his resolve unwavering. His actions, his words, his leadership, they all echoed the same message, a message of equality, justice, and freedom. With determination and courage, King was leading a revolution, one peaceful protest at a time. His struggle for equality was more than just a struggle. It was a movement, a revolution that forever changed the landscape of America. In 1963, Martin Luther King took the stage for one of the most influential speeches in American history. This was no ordinary event. It was the March on Washington, an assembly of more than 200,000 people, all clamoring for jobs and freedom. King was the last speaker, the crescendo of the day's symphony of voices demanding equality. As he looked over the sea of faces, he began to speak. His voice, smooth yet powerful, echoed over the crowd. He spoke of his dream, a vision of a future where his children would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. His words were a beacon of hope, shining through the fog of prejudice and discrimination. "I have a dream," he declared, and with those 4 words, he painted a picture of a world free of hatred and bigotry. His dream was a tapestry of unity and harmony, woven with threads of freedom and justice, where every man, woman, and child could live in peace. The impact of his speech was immediate and far-reaching. It galvanized the civil rights movement, giving it a new momentum that swept across the nation. It wasn't just the words he spoke, but the way he spoke them, with a conviction and passion that resonated with everyone who heard them. It was a call to action, a plea for justice, and a declaration of hope. But the influence of King's speech didn't stop at the borders of the United States. It captured the attention of the world, spreading his dream far and wide. It was a message that transcended race, culture, and nationality, touching the hearts of people everywhere. King's dream was not just a dream for him, but a dream for all of humanity. It was a dream of a world where love and understanding would replace hate and ignorance, where freedom and equality would be more than just words, but a reality for all. His dream was a promise of a better tomorrow, a promise that continues to inspire us today. The world acknowledged King's struggle with the highest honor of peace. In 1964, the Nobel Committee awarded Martin Luther King Jr. the Nobel Peace Prize, recognizing his steadfast commitment to achieving racial equality through non-violent means. King was just 35 at the time, making him the youngest man to ever receive the prestigious accolade. Yet, as King himself would often say, the struggle was far from over. With the Nobel Prize came international attention and recognition, but King did not rest on his laurels. He continued to champion the cause of civil rights, broadening his focus to tackle economic inequality and poverty. He argued that economic rights were inseparable from civil rights, and that one could not truly be free without economic security. In the latter part of the 60s, King turned his attention to the escalating conflict in Vietnam. He firmly opposed the Vietnam War, viewing it as an unjust conflict that disproportionately affected African Americans and the poor. This stance was controversial, even within the civil rights movement, but King was unwavering. He believed that peace and social justice were intertwined, and he was not afraid to speak out against what he perceived as an unjust war. King's expanded focus on economic inequality and his opposition to the Vietnam War marked a shift in his activism. His message became broader, encompassing not just racial equality, but also economic justice and peace. He faced criticism and opposition, but he remained resolute. His belief in the power of nonviolent protest and his vision for a more equitable society never faltered. Despite trials and tribulations, King's resolve never wavered. He continued to march on. His recognition on the global stage did not divert him from his path, but rather, it emboldened him. He remained committed to his dream, a dream of a world where all people, regardless of their race or economic status, could live in peace and prosperity. On April 4, 1968, King's life was tragically cut short, but his dream lived on. The news of King's assassination shook the nation and the world. He was only 39 when he was fatally shot on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. The shockwaves of this tragic event reverberated around the globe, igniting a cascade of mourning, outrage, and a renewed determination to continue what King had started. King's death was not just a loss of a great leader, it was a brutal interruption of a dream of equality, of justice, and of a world where the color of one's skin did not determine their opportunities or their worth. But even in his absence, his dream lived on, his words echoing through the years, inspiring generation after generation to stand up for what they believe in. Following King's death, the fight for civil rights took on a new urgency. His assassination was a harsh reminder of the realities of racial violence and the urgent need for change. It spurred the swift passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, also known as the Fair Housing Act, a landmark piece of legislation that prohibited discrimination concerning the sale, rental, and financing of housing based on race, religion, national origin, and sex. This was a significant stride towards equality, a testament to King's tireless efforts and the power of his dream. Today, more than 5 decades after his untimely death, King's legacy continues to be a beacon of hope and a source of inspiration. His teachings, his courage, and his unwavering commitment to non-violent protest continue to shape our understanding of justice, equality, and human rights. King's dream was more than a vision of a better future. It was a call to action, a challenge to each of us to rise above our prejudices, to fight against injustice, and to strive for a world where everyone is judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. In King's own words, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter.